Hello everybody, welcome back to Kanga TV, the home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to the official round 2 review. North Melbourne defeating the Melbourne Demons by 59 points yesterday at Marvel Stadium, 19-11, 125 to 9 goals, 12-66, and wow, it's the morning after, and I don't think I've slept more than about 4 hours last night, just soaking it all in. I did film a first reaction to the victory last night, and a lot of what I said then will be spoken about again today, just fleshed out a lot more and added to. Going into that game yesterday, I am notoriously delusional and optimistic, and I always think we're a chance, and I knew that we were on the cusp of something special, but I didn't know that we were capable of putting a side away by 10 goals. It's been so long since we saw such a dominant, just about 4-quarter display from this side, and it's just phenomenal what we can do when we put it all together. Scintillating 4 quarters of football, and the result, as amazing as that, makes me feel like this side is capable of just about anything. Let's talk about the game. We'll talk about the individuals. We'll talk about what lies ahead next week and for the rest of our season. My one thing before I start is just to say enjoy it. You know, we have been so starved of wins and so starved of excitement as North fans in the last 4 or 5 years in particular. And yes, there will be a lot of over-the-top celebrations, and we will be completely insufferable this week, no doubt. Just enjoy it. You know, footy is about enjoyment, and it's about having fun, and it's the moments like these that make it so special. So get carried away, have a great time, just enjoy this week, and bask in all its glory, because you do deserve it, North fans, for sticking by the side and being there through thick and thin. This is our just desserts. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, something to eat, and let's just dive straight into all the action from Marvel Stadium yesterday. The first match review I ever did on this channel was about a month ago. We played the Dees at Arden Street at an intra-club sort of practice game, and I made a point that I wondered how much of our game plan and how much of what we were capable of was actually on display that morning at Arden Street, because we knew we were playing the Dees a month later, and that's not really a long time, and it sort of felt like we were keeping our cards maybe close to our chest a little bit, because in the intra-club game the week before, we showed so many positive signs, quick ball movement, really exciting, really high pace, high intensity footy, and that wasn't really on display the following week when we played the Dees in that practice game. And I don't know how much of that was true from then to now, but it almost felt like a completely different side that stepped out on the field at Marvel yesterday. It wasn't all smooth sailing. It was a pretty shaky start, and by shaky I mean we just could not convert once again in front of the scoreboard, and it was the same issue that we had for the third game in a row. We had it against West Coast in that practice game at Bunbury, we had it last week against the Dogs, and then to start the first quarter, kicking 1 goal 5, and then finishing out the quarter 3 goals 5 was really frustrating and really, really disappointing, because on the other hand, the Dees had kicked 3 to 4 goals, mostly from free kicks, sure, but that doesn't mean that they're all of a sudden not valid, because they still reflected on the scoreboard and they were still there at quarter time, and it flattered the Dees, to be honest, that first quarter margin. We absolutely played out of our skins. We dominated that first quarter. We controlled most of the game, to be honest, but that first quarter in particular, I sat there at quarter time and it was frustrating, because it became so evident that we are the masters of our own destiny, and we had the keys to the result of this game. And it felt quite similar for most of last week as well, except in the start of the fourth quarter when the Dogs just blew the game open. It kind of felt like the same yesterday, in that we were the ones hitting the scoreboard. We were the ones dictating the state of play. We just couldn't kick straight, and we were dropping really easy marks in defence, and we looked a bit fumbly and a little bit sloppy, giving away silly free kicks and giving the Dees an opportunity and giving them a sniff through then. It's interesting. I wonder how the game would have gone had we been able to knuckle that first quarter down and convert a couple more opportunities, because we should have gone into quarter time 3 or 4 goals up. no doubt. We absolutely just dominated that. And you know that there's something there, and you know that we're on the cusp of something special. So for us not to be able to convert and really capitalize on what we know we're capable of and what we're proving that we're capable of time and time again, missing shots, like I said, and just making silly errors further up the ground, was frustrating and disappointing. But they were able to make a change halfway through the second quarter. It was like a flick of a switch, and we sat 3 goals, 8 halfway through the second quarter. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was something led internally, if it was a mindset thing, but we just took it up a notch, and we started to convert, and we started to become a lot more efficient heading inside 50, and we were converting, and there were multiple goal scorers. I think we had 8 individual goal scorers at one point close to half time, and everyone started to chip in. And that's the thing with this game. I will talk about individual players, sure, but it really was a team effort. I think every single person on that field played their role yesterday, and every single person was so integral to that final result. There was no passengers yesterday, and when your bottom 6 to 8 players are stepping up and having an impact the way they were, the likes of a Toby Pink or a Darcy Tucker, a Luke McDonald, these are the guys that would be the first on the chopping block should we have lost that game. But instead, they all were a big reason as to why we were able to win that game, and they were a huge part. They all contributed so well, and like I said, were part of the reason as to why we won that game yesterday. So we couldn't kick straight for the first quarter and a half, and we're also over-possessing the ball. We had a lot of the ball, and like I said, a lot of control of the ball in that first half, and we just kept digging ourselves into bigger and bigger holes. And the thing with the start of the fourth quarter, and we'll get there in a second, but the start of the fourth quarter is we were just so efficient. We were just moving the ball so efficiently into our forward 50. Obviously, winning the clearances were helping, but we know what we're capable of. We know that we've got one of the best ruckmen in the competition, and we've got this star-studded midfield. And everyone always talks about it externally. When you actually finally see it get into gear and get into practice, we looked amazing, and we looked unstoppable. And that football we displayed, particularly in that fourth quarter and even in that third quarter, was efficient, and it proved that our best really is good enough to beat just about anyone. And the Dees, I know they lost to the Giants last week, but they did prove last week, I think, that they are still around the mark, and maybe they are capable of challenging. And again, we're early on in the season, and we don't know how this is going to take us, but for a side like North, who we haven't really been able to beat any sides bar the ones around us, lingering at the bottom of the ladder for the past few seasons, it was so pleasing to be able to get that win yesterday, and to do it in such emphatic style was amazing. I mean, I'm gushing, but like, what more can I say, you know? But yes, those I think were the biggest negatives of yesterday's game, and if those are the only negatives, and we were able to fix them. Like I said, if the negatives from yesterday's game were things that were in our control and things that we could fix, and we, like I said, the masters of our own destiny, then how could you really complain with that? It was so good, and it was so spectacular. And when we did start to tighten up our ball use, make smarter options, and really just cut out a lot of the fluff, yes, we were still dilly-dallying a little bit with the ball as the game went on, but for the majority, we were able to just be a lot cleaner, be a lot smarter with our ball use. I think Caleb Daniel in the middle of the ground in those second and third quarters was a big, big part of that. I think he was integral in linking the ball from the back end of the ground to the forward end of the ground. And again, we'll get to individual players soon, but to tidy all of those mistakes up and to identify the mistakes as being our own and us being the reason between winning and losing that game was the most pleasing thing. So there's no more praise I can give the side as a whole for really being able to rectify their own mistakes and moving on towards victory. Let's talk about Charlie Comben, because last night in my first reaction video, I said that I felt like our trajectory as a side and the way the game played out was very similar to how his game as an individual played out. In the first half, he looked quite shaky, and he wasn't great last week either. And it felt like that kind of carried into the game yesterday as well. He didn't look confident in that first quarter. He was dropping quite easy marks, and it looked like the Dees were once again going to get on top of him. And I sat there halfway through the second quarter and thought he's got a half a footy to get his act together, because there are multiple key defenders waiting in the wings for their opportunity and to come in and step into this side. Griffin Logue, I don't know how much longer he's going to be on the outer four with that hamstring injury, but Charlie has some work to do because he didn't start the game well. And I think he's a very honest person, and he'd probably be the first person to admit that he wasn't happy with the way his own game went in the first quarter and a half yesterday. But like I said, when the team switched and it was like a flick of a switch halfway through the second quarter, it felt like he followed along with that, and he ended up being one of our best on ground. He ended the day with 16 touches, 12 marks, 5 of which were contested. He was unstoppable in the air, and he was marking just about everything. And in that third quarter in particular, Clarko pointed out in his press conference after the game, we had 9 inside 50s to 19 in the third quarter. The Dees won that quarter in terms of inside 50s, but a big part of how we were able to combat that was Charlie Comben and his aerial work in particular. And last week after the game, we were saying that our defence was the leakiest, most worrying part of the ground, but how much of a difference a week can make in football. Every single player in that back line yesterday stood up. I thought Toby Pink was excellent as well. His physical presence, his tackling was really, really strong, and there was a lot of talk during the week about the work he's put in over the off-season. So for him to come into that side yesterday and replace Griffin Logue, who is arguably our best key defender, I think a lot of North fans objectively would say that he's our best key defender. The way Toby Pink was able to come in and cover for him, I thought he was excellent. I thought that Aiden Core did another fantastic job on Jacob Van Ruin. And I think a lot of people, and I said this in my video last week and I've said it during the week, I said it in the preview for this game, I think a lot of people look at Aiden Core and he could do 10 nice things and one bad thing. It's the one bad thing that always stands out, but I thought he battled so bravely yesterday. His spoiling was just fantastic. He was getting to just about every pack. He was just throwing his body at the ball left, right and centre, and the back line had help from the midfield, and the midfield had help from the forward line, and we didn't win the tackling count overwhelmingly. We won it, I think it was 49 to 47 in favour of North. So we won the tackle count by 2. And I actually think the Dees won the tackle count inside their forward 50. But it's the work we did without the ball in hand. It's the pressure act. It's the intensity. It's the swarming in numbers. It's the mass in numbers. It's just being around the ball just about all the time. And that was such a big difference for us yesterday. It was a real work rate thing. And a couple of our key midfielders spent a lot of time in defence or playing in a more defensive role than they did playing in an offensive role. In roles I've never seen them before. LDU is one I want to talk about. LDU, he's played some really special games. That game against Richmond last year in round 21 probably stands out as one of his best games. He was able to hit the scoreboard and he was just damaging with his ball in hand. But yesterday he played a more defensive game, and it was one of the most impressive, dominating performances I've ever seen from LDU. The numbers weren't as big as he normally has. I think he had about 23 touches yesterday, which, we're used to seeing LDU's big standout games, him, possessions in the 30s and hitting the scoreboard. It wasn't like that yesterday, but I thought yesterday, in terms of how much damage and how much of an impact he had on the game, probably one of the best performances I've seen from LDU and one of the most impressive performances I've seen. He looked like a man possessed. I don't think I've ever seen him chase the ball and hunt the man as ferociously as he did yesterday. And it allowed the likes of a Tom Powell to step up and be that guy and be the center of attention in the midfield yesterday. And the way Tom Powell has been able to transform his career over the past 18 months is such a welcome sight, because if Shees is having an off day, and Shees has had a couple of really off days to start the season. I mean, he was around the ball yesterday, but he definitely wasn't as impactful as we are used to him being. Or if a Colby McKercher can't get to the ball, or if Finn O'Sullivan can't get to the ball, it's a guy like Tom Powell who can step up. And this is the benefit now, and we're seeing the fruits of having such a dynamic midfield, is one week it can be LDU, and another week it can be Tom Powell, another week it can be Shees, and they each bring something so different. So for them to work as a unit and rather than individuals, it just flows so much better, the trust that they've been able to build. And this is something to be said about having consistency and having an opportunity for the players as a team to gel. You look at that back line yesterday as a really good example, and it's the second week in a row they've just about been able to play in unison. You've only made that one change. You made two changes, actually, I should say. You've got no Jackson Archer and no Griffin Logue. Now, Darcy Tucker has had time. He played as the sub last week, and, he has played a fair bit of time with majority of the defenders in that backline yesterday, but you make minimal changes. You only make changes when needed. And all of a sudden, it's another week of these guys being able to play together, and the likes of Charlie Comben and Toby Pink has played some time with this side and in that backline. Aiden Corr's been a real general down there for the last 12 months. Caleb Daniels had a second week now to settle in. Luke McDonald, Darcy Tucker, they looked so strong and united as a front. And that is the benefit of having a strong system and having consistency and continuity in your personnel. A lot of people, like I said before, would be calling for the likes of a Darcy Tucker or a Luke McDonald had that game not gone our way. But on the flip side, it has gone our way, and they were all able to have an impact of their own yesterday, and they were all able to, like I said, work as a team. And it doesn't mean it's going to last forever, and there will be a time when the likes of a Tucker or a McDonald, they do make way. Jackson Archer will come back into the side, and then we'll look to bring the likes of a Riley Hardiman and a Josh Goda into this side for the future. But there's something to be said about this side playing consistently as a whole, and this is the one thing. And if you can keep a healthy list, which we didn't have the luxury of last season, we had 20 odd players rotating through the backline throughout the season last year, making minimal changes to a side on a week-to-week basis and allowing them to play as a unit, trust each other and work together, that's all you can really ask for. And that is ultimately what's going to allow us to succeed in the future. I mentioned Tom Powell just before, but I wanted to give him his flowers and really talk to his numbers because, yes, by eye, his game was outstanding yesterday. But if you look at the stat sheet, it was equally as impressive. He had 31 touches at 85% disposal efficiency, 2 marks, 2 tackles, 8 clearances, and a goal. If you don't mind, Tom Powell has well and truly arrived. And I think we knew last season what he'd be able to bring this season, but he's closed the gap once again between his best and his worst. And it's not to say that his worst footy was bad last year. It maybe just wasn't as damaging, but his best footy is scintillating. And he's so young, and it's taken a few years. And we all really forget about patience. I think we, especially North fans, I could probably speak to the majority of the competition, but as North fans in particular, we have waited so long to see guys like this flourish. And LDU took time to develop, and I was definitely put my hand up and say that I was so hard on LDU early on in his career. He definitely disappointed me. I thought, top 5 pick, he's going to come in and have an impact straight away. But it took him a while to get going, and now you can see the Rolls Royce it is. And Tom Powell, you could probably say the same thing. He's put on some size. He's been able to break into the side, and he's become undroppable. And he's not only become undroppable, he's become a key component of that midfield. He is such an incredible in and under player. He can go back defensively if we need to. He can go forward and kick a goal like he did yesterday. Just really outstanding stuff. He was well supported by Luke Parker. I thought Luke Parker did have a really quiet game last week, and a lot of them did, to be honest. And you look at him and you think, well, you're an experienced guy and we brought you in to have an impact. Why aren't you having it? He definitely had an impact yesterday. Same with Caleb Daniel. Like I said, an equal team high 31 touches for Caleb Daniel. I thought particularly in the middle of the game in the second and third quarters, he was an integral part of being able to link up the back line with the forward line, and he was so integral to so many passages of play when we're bringing the ball forward and centre. I really looked at him yesterday and thought, this is what you were brought into the side to do. Yes, he did make a few mistakes. There were a few turnovers from Caleb Daniel, but you can't A, fault his efforts, and B, it's probably still better execution and decision making than we've seen from a lot of players in that position. Previously, Luke McDonald's played that role, even Zach Fisher, who his intention is always great and he's always really lively around the ball, but the execution and the disposal maybe isn't as clean as what we were able to see from Caleb Daniel yesterday. So I really, really liked his game. I liked Parker's game as well, and both of those guys were able to have an impact. Probably didn't have quite the impact last week with ball in hand, but this week really made a difference. All of these guys, all these midfielders were well served by one and only Tristan Xerri. There's been a lot of discussion around Tristan Xerri and Max Gawn in particular, and who should have been that All-Australian ruckman last year. Now the All-Australian, it's so funny. I've never seen a fake team throw up so much debate and throw up so much talking and discussion point, but really, and I know Simon Goodwin addressed Max Gawn and some behind-the-scenes stuff supposedly that's going on with him. But when you're watching the game yesterday out of context, Tristan Xerri just looked miles ahead of Max Gawn, and it kind of looked like the passing of the baton. Almost Max Gawn has been such an incredible servant of this game and of the Melbourne Football Club for so many years as a captain, as a ruckman, and we know what he can do. Everyone knows Max Gawn is an incredible ruckman, and he has been so durable and so sustainable for such a long time, but yesterday was all about Tristan Xerri. He had 29 hit-outs, sure, but it was less about the hit-outs and more about what he did with the ball in hand around the ground. And this is something that Todd Goldstein had that we were so privileged to watch for over a decade at North Melbourne. It was what he could do around the ground. And the ruckman, as a tap ruckman, I think is becoming less important in the game. It's the kind of player you can be without the ball in the ruck contests, and he finished off the day with 12 clearances, 20 touches at 85% disposal efficiency, 2 tackles, 2 marks, and a big goal early in the third quarter that came from a massive mark with Jack Darling's kick into the forward 50. I just can't sing his praises enough, and I don't personally think I talk about Tristan Xerri enough. I think we've quickly become so accustomed to what he can do. And it's similar to Harry Sheezel, I think, at a point last year. You kind of just expect him to have a game like he had yesterday. But going up against Max Gawn, regardless of the headspace and regardless of the form he's in, it's always going to be a daunting task. It's never going to be easy. And it is like the master and apprentice. So for Tristan Xerri to have a game like he had yesterday and to really rule the roost in the ruck yesterday, I think he deserves all of the praise that comes his way and more. Speaking of somebody who deserves all the praises and all the flowers that come their way this week, Cam Zurhaar, what a difference a week makes. And the thing with Zurhaar is last week he actually played really, really well, and he was one of the best players for us on the ground, with the exception of the inconsistencies in front of goal. And someone did mention in the comments last week that he was the barometer, and he can be the barometer for us for sure. And he fired in both games. I don't think you can take away the work that he did last week. He just couldn't convert. 1 goal for last week, 4 goals this week. It just is so important for him to be able to make the most of his opportunities, and he absolutely did yesterday. And it's just a reflection on how well this forward line is functioning. We have got such a good balance in that forward line at the moment. And 2 guys I want to talk about that allows the likes of a Zurhaar and a Curtis, who was once again fantastic yesterday, and Nick Larkey shine. It's the work that's done off the ball by the likes of a Constanti and a Robert Hansen Jr. Both of them, I thought, once again, was so good yesterday. And I say this all the time, but you've got to have guys in the side that are there to play their role to allow the superstars to shine. And that's exactly what both of those guys did yesterday. Constanti was able to hit the scoreboard with a goal of his own, but it's the pressure acts that we saw from him, and it's the willingness to involve themselves in the contest, both he and Robert Hansen Jr. Robert Hansen Jr. is so exciting with ball in hand. I actually get so excited every time he is near the ball, because it's little things, but it's just that little bit of flair and that little bit of creativity and that little bit of dash and poise that can make the world of difference. And it's been really, really long since we've had small forwards who are able to involve themselves in the game. And the thing with small forwards is they don't always need to have big games. They just need to have moments. They need to have the flash in the pan moments. And with these 2 small forwards, they work so well. Constanti in a defensive way and Robert Hansen Jr. in an offensive way. And while the 2 of them only combined for 1 goal yesterday, Zurhaar kicks 4, Curtis has an impact, Larkey has an impact. They allow these guys to get the job done. And it doesn't always need to be, and this is what I was saying about the backline and working as a unit, it doesn't always have to be that every single player needs to have a big game. It's just how they work for the greater good. And it did absolutely serve the greater good yesterday. So while Constanti and Hansen Jr. only combined for the 1 goal, you've got Larkey, Curtis and Zurhaar combining for an amazing 10 goals. And that's the difference. That's what it's got to be. It's got to be less about looking at what each individual player is doing to benefit the side, but how it's benefiting the forward line as a whole. You can add Jack Darling into that mix, and the way he was celebrated yesterday was amazing, and it speaks volumes about this football club and the off-field side of this football club. Jack Darling played 298 games for another club, but it almost felt like yesterday he was chaired off the ground as a North Melbourne person in his just second game for the club, which is absolutely remarkable. It is something, like I said, to be said about this club and the way we treat people with open arms when they do come here and when they do choose to play at Arden Street for so long. I think we've been so used to going after big players and them not wanting to come to us. So when we are able to attract the likes of a Darling or a Parker or a Daniel, albeit a lot of people thought maybe they were past their prime, it's knowing they want to be here and they want to contribute to what we are building. It makes such a world of difference. And the fans, the way that they got around him when he kicked his 2 goals and when he was chaired off the ground. It was such a nice touch as well for the club to invite Andrew Gaff to speak to the players in the rooms pre-game and to join Luke Parker in chairing him off the ground yesterday. I thought that was such a beautiful touch, and it was something that Jack Darling really deserved. He's been enormous as well for North Melbourne since coming across. Add him to the list of Larkey and Zerha and Curtis and Constanti and Robert Hansen Jr. Like I said, it's how they worked as a group to hit the scoreboard. We also had the likes of the midfield group coming through, Tom Powell chipping in, Bailey Scott chipping in with a goal. Makes the world of difference. And what more could I do but sing the praises of this side yesterday? Speaking of the forward line, let's talk about that last quarter. The game was, I don't know if I want to say the game was in the balance at 3/4 time, but there were only 3 goals the difference at 3/4 time. And as a North fan, we've watched so many leads slip from our grasp. And on the flip side, we've also been able to claw our way back into games from behind. I mean, this fixture last year, we were 5 goals down at 3/4 time and we threw everything at the Dees in that last quarter and came within a kick and almost stole victory from them. So going into that last change, you sit there and think, right, we're 3 goals in the balance and anything really could happen here. And it did. We kicked 6 goals in the opening 11 minutes of the final quarter to blow the game open and run away to a near 10-goal victory. I haven't seen us demolish a side in lightning speed the way we did yesterday for probably a decade. There were games in 2014 and 2015 where we were able to blitz sides. They had no answers. Like, we actually looked unstoppable. And it was the likes of a Zerha and a Curtis that were chipping in, and they were the guys driving this from the front to just put the D's to the torch efficiently and accurately. And it was, Clarko said, scintillating football. And Clarko in his press conference after the game said it was validation for our football club. And you know what, it was validation for our club, because the midfield is often spoken about as the driving force to North's success in the future. And it was on full show yesterday the way our midfielders were able to link up with our forwards, and we were giving ourselves the best opportunity to have shots on goal and also execute the ball cleanly inside forward 50. We took all the fluff out of it and we were just really efficient. And you watch the Dogs do that to us in the 4th quarter last week. For us to be able to reverse that and absolutely put them to the sword so ferociously the way we did in that 4th quarter was just so pleasing. And I think that is 11 minutes of football I will watch over and over and over again. I know I'm not alone in that. I think that was a very, very special portion of football, and that is at our absolute best what we can do. The D's had no answers for that, and other teams will have no answers. A lot of teams will have no answers for that. I think that was quite evident yesterday. I want to finish off by talking about Jai Simpkin, because he played his second game as North Melbourne solo captain yesterday, and I think he made a massive, massive difference to the game. Last week, Jai had a really weird game, in my opinion. He started off hot, but not at the same time. The intent from the get-go there was good from Jai last week, but he made a lot of costly mistakes in that opening quarter and was ultimately detrimental, and really was, again, symbolic of how the game went last week. Really poor in the first quarter and just not really costly in the first quarter, but then worked his way into the game. Yesterday, he played more of a defensive role. He actually split his time between offense and defense just about evenly. And he was the guy for a lot of that late in the third and even in the fourth quarter. He was really strong in defense. It looked like he pushed back and he helped out the back line the way he needed to. And again, it comes back to this greater good thing of him pushing aside where he might want to be on the ball or, pushing forward into attack. But he was really solid down back, and I thought he was really resilient, and he did what he needed to do. He did what he needed to do to get his side over the line, and that is what a good captain does. He stands up and he weathers the storm, and he fights back. It's resilience. It's acknowledging that his intent was good last week, and yes, he did build himself into the game, but the way he was able to back it up last night and his performance and playing offensively when needed to and playing defensively when needed to. He kicked a really big goal in the first quarter to, I guess, set the tone again, and what a difference it can make. And he really is an underrated player for mine, Jai Simpkin, in terms of the impact that he has on this team. I know it's a silly thing to say about your captain, but I think he has the ability to change a game, maybe the way we don't give him credit to. And the faulty start last week was evident of that. And the game yesterday was also evident of that. So I just wanted to touch on Jai Simpkin. He has barely put a foot wrong, in my opinion, as solo captain thus far. I know the opening quarter last week wasn't great, but he's pretty much cleaned up since then and played 7 really great quarters of footy. And I think that he should be spoken about a lot more. A couple more things before I let you guys get on with your celebrating. I don't know if anybody else noticed yesterday at the ground, but goal songs would have been so good yesterday. I think they would have been so much fun and added to the atmosphere, particularly in that last quarter. What is the point of having goal songs if you can't even hear them? The music after every goal was so quiet yesterday. It just absolutely fell flat, like dead in the water. And goal songs are great, and they're a really great element for a side, particularly when you're up and about. There's just no point in having them if you can't hear them, and I would rather not have them at all. So I really hope that's rectified. We play our next home game against the Swans at Marvel in 2 weeks' time, and I really hope that is rectified. Before then, I also hope that there is a crowd similar at the game against the Swans in 2 weeks' time. There was yesterday, because it was our first home game of the year, and almost 30,000 fans showed up at Marvel Stadium in numbers, and they saw one of the best North Melbourne performances they have seen for a very, very long time. Kudos to everyone who did show up. I know that it can be really difficult to show up when you feel like the side isn't showing up for you, but I really hope that yesterday was a sign of where this club is headed, and I really hope that North fans are able to enjoy it, but also see what's capable and be there to see it in person. AFL is such a unique sport in that attendance at the ground is a massive part of the game. And NRL, it's a TV sport, maybe even something like the soccer is a TV sport. But AFL, I think part of the AFL experience and the culture is going with your family and friends to a game and being there and being surrounded by like-minded people. North is a really special club. We're all so close. And I think yesterday was just for the fans. A lot of people commented on my reaction video last night and said, this one's for you and you really deserve it. It's not about me. It's about all of us, and it's about sharing this together. And for those of you who don't have anyone to go to the footy with, I've said this so many times before, Bay 29 is a great place to be for our home games. Grab a general admission ticket if you're there on an away day. There's nothing better than being there and being able to just soak it in person. It has an everlasting effect, and you really walk out of Marvel Stadium yesterday with your head held high. I'm proud to be a North supporter always. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't, but moments like yesterday make it extra special. And to start the season 1-1 and to finish round 2 in the top 8, it's been a really long time since we could actually sit here and say that proudly. And like I said, I'm always proud to be a North person, but I'm feeling extra proud today, and it was just everything and more. I have goosebumps just thinking about yesterday, and I know I'll be watching that replay for a very, very long time. That is the review of yesterday's game. Now it's time to hear from you. What did you guys think of yesterday's incredible performance against the Dees? Let's chat about it. Leave all of your thoughts in the comments down below. You can also have the conversation over on socials, Kanga TV Show on Facebook, Instagram, X. And to celebrate, the caps are coming back. Pre-order for the caps, the Kanga TV caps, will be open today for a week. I'll leave the link in the comments down below as well. Grab your caps. I'll hopefully have them all ready and out to you guys by Good Friday. Why not? Let's do it. Kanga TV caps, 1 week only, open for pre-order. They'll be ready in a couple of weeks' time. Link in the bio. Link on socials. I'm going to go watch the replay again, guys. I will see you later in the week as we look forward to round 3 and what is shaping up to be a mouth-watering contest against the Crows. Go Roos.